Okay, I'm going to call our regular Board of Education meeting to order. If we could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we get started, first, Chris Furtaugh's not with us tonight, so Angela's going to take care of the board secretary duties, but we still have with us Sandy Fortuna. And Sandy, if you unmute yourself, she is still with us. The election has still not been certified, so we don't have a new board member yet. So that is why we have Sandy with us again this evening. When we said last meeting was her last meeting, so this one's probably going to be her last meeting. So that being said, Angela, would you do our mission statement?
Sure. At Richmond Community Schools, we provide a quality education that empowers students to be successful in the global community. And I'll do roll call.
Yep.
Margaret?
Yes, here.
Jessica?
Here.
And Chris is absent with notice. Kyle?
Here.
Sandra?
Here.
Sherry?
Here.
And I am present. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next is the approval of our agenda. I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda. We are adding an item 11E, which is approval of letter of agreement. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda with that amendment.
I motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to and approve the agenda as presented with the added letter E for the letter of agreement.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, our bond update. This evening, we're going to get an update on our bond project at the various buildings. And we have, is Jerry out there? I thought I saw, yep, there he is.
Yep.
All right, Jerry McClellan from AUK is going to give us an update.
Thank you, Margaret. So first, I want to touch on the active project, which is Lee Elementary. We are out of the ground, meaning we have the foundations and all the underground utility major work complete. The structural block is complete on the additions. The structural steel is substantially complete on the south end, and they're moving to the north end addition. That's projected to be completed by the end of next week. Following that, the roofers are following the structural, and then following that is the floor slabs are being poured. Our first pour is going to be tomorrow for the first half of the southeast addition. As we continue on with that, the masons are continuing with brickwork, try to take advantage of this mild weather we have, get the brick up, and then as the slabs are poured, they're going to move to the interior, and it'll start to look like classrooms real soon. Mechanical and electrical trades and plumbers are following along with the masons as the walls go up, getting the in wall done, and then we'll begin the rough overhead. We are taking advantage of some evening work to go ahead and get some of the preliminary overhead electrical and mechanical items in place to lessen the load on next summer's work. We do have a lot of work to get done, but we are taking advantage of what we can to get some pipe up and do that without disrupting the normal operations. That's pretty much the update for the, one other thing that we do have, the condensing units for the air conditioning. We were able to get those, so we're getting those in place here so that we can get that work done as quickly as possible as well. Are there any questions on Lee Elementary, what you see so far?
No?
Ow! Hey.
Okay.
Well, with the exception of that, no, there's no question.
Hopefully we're not causing that kind of pain, but anyway, so that's Lee Elementary. Moving on to the next items in the update. We did receive bids on November 17th for the high school and middle school. You will be getting, and you do have a draft in your packet of some information that's going to come for next month for approval. We have 31 contracts that will be awarded for the high school, roughly somewhere in the neighborhood of $11 million in trade work that will be done, site building, some additions and canopies and renovations. We received 115 bids for those 31 categories. So we got very good coverage in the market. We are currently validating those bids. Brian is very familiar with the process. It's very in-depth. Each bidder is interviewed with the apparent low bidder being interviewed. If there are problems with their bid, we'll get to the bottom of it now rather than finding out later. We have had a couple bidders that were incomplete scope. So we are going to the next bidder, and you will see that one has already, or one or two or a few have already withdrawn their bids because they missed things that are requirements of the contract. At this point, the budget appears to be okay on the high school. However, we are still validating all the numbers, and we will be reporting to administration ahead of the recommendation where we sit. There are a couple alternates to consider on the projects. On the middle school, there will be 30 contracts that we will be requesting approval on. We received 105 bids for those 30 contracts. Same process is going on with the middle school as the high school. Some of the contractors, not many, but some will be considered for contract for both high school and middle school. They will be separate contracts. They are separate projects, separate permitting. Everything is by building with the state. So this one, we are validating the budget, and we will be communicating with Brian on what we have there. There are a couple alternates, a little bit more to consider on the middle school, but we will put that together for Brian, and then that information will be available ahead of our recommendation. On November 10th, we received proposals. One thing we want to make sure is clear for the fire alarm system. We wanted to make sure the same fire alarm system is throughout the district. We have a great opportunity. All the buildings are being renovated at the same time, so we can get one system, all buildings, that operates the same. In order to do that, we put the proposal ahead of our electrical bids that we received on the 17th. There won't be any board action required for that particular work. That has been assigned to the electrical contractor, and it will be in the electrical contract that you approve. So the successful vendor was National Time. It is a system we're very familiar with. It is a system that is in part of the district now. They will be able to and have offered cost savings to reuse some of the materials that are currently in working order. We are validating that. Again, that will go through the steps with the design professionals to make sure anything that we reuse will be there for the duration and not something that we're cutting costs just to cut costs. We're going to make sure we're getting your value on that. But that process took place ahead of the bids so that we could inform the bidders. The electrical bidders would have this covered complete in their scope, which is the normal process. The next item that we have is we are bidding out the parking lot for Lee Elementary. Those bids with the decision to add the parking, which I think is a good idea to get that parking added in completely throughout that interior area. That did slide a couple of weeks. So we are seeing those bids come in December 2nd. We do anticipate we might have 12 to 15 bids for those 4 categories that will be included. We do believe we can get that all validated ahead of the board meeting and have that also with the recommendation coming next month. We will do the same process of validating those low bids, going through our post-bid evaluation and confirming that we have complete scope and that the low bidders are able to complete the work. There are a lot of new names out there. We are validating those. When we do see a name that we're not familiar with or the district's not familiar with, our CFO, who is a certified public accountant, does a pretty good review of their finances to make sure that they are a viable contractor. We check with their bonding company. We don't just rubber stamp someone because they have a low bid. We're making sure that they're going to provide what's needed for the contract and that they are the lowest responsive bidder, which means they're complete and can do the work. All of this is done. Brian is very involved with us on this, and we welcome that. In the information that we have, there's a lot of information that's coming to you, but just understand that there's a lot of work behind the scenes that our project manager, Chris Drew, and our assistant project manager, Colleen Kofel, and our project engineer, Tony De La Rosa, are doing for the district. Brian, was there anything else I needed to cover?
I just want the board members, in your packet, you'll see an itemized list of all those different contracts that Jerry mentioned. At the December 14th board meeting, you'll be asked to approve about $20 million in contracts, which is a lot of money. And as Jerry said, we have been going through each bid in the interview process to make sure they have included everything in their scope, so that we aren't hit by missing items and so forth. And each one, it's been an interesting process because there are ways that some contractors have said, well, if you consider this, you may be able to save some money, and we're vetting those. The one thing I do want to just remind the board, when we bid out the elementary project, we added air conditioning. When we bid out the middle school and high school, we added air conditioning. So as Jerry said, the budget's okay. Obviously, there's a significant part of the budget that is because of the air conditioning. But we believe in the totality of all three projects, we will still be in a very good shape as a district. So when we open the doors next fall, all three of our buildings should be air conditioned. So, which is a huge milestone that we were able to accomplish with this bond. Other than that, if there's any questions, we'd be more than happy to answer them.
Anybody have any questions?
Just when you said the extended parking lot in Lee, we're not doing the grassy area, right? We're doing that whole.
We had, yeah, it's a complete, that site plan that you saw, right? It's completely parking now. Yeah, that did, the design team had to drop back and get the proper storm drainage system done for that. So yes, it's complete. All the parking we can fit in there is now in there.
Thank you.
Do we have anticipated finish date by any chance?
Well, each project is going to have a little bit different completion date as far as certain components, but all of the work for occupying the school will be done by the fall for open a school. The gym addition at the high school is not going to be complete with the opening of school. That will probably be more along the lines of the winter. But again, as this process is going, Angela, we will be confirming those schedules, but the completion is to get occupancy, get everybody in school. There may be a few things going like that gym addition and some canopies like we mentioned last time. But that's the target date.
One of the things that Jerry mentioned is we've been, some of our contractors at the elementary school have been working in the evening hours, trying to move things ahead. We have begun planning what that would look like at the high school and middle school. Like for instance, the office on the main office and our office, we believe we have a plan that allows us to start that work in spring break without interrupting the instructional part of the school. It will cause some peripheral offices, such as the board office number 1, to move to a different location, which we're working out those plans. But the idea is whatever we can move ahead of time during the school year, after hours, to allow for more time during the summer for the main project. Next summer is going to be a very busy summer. I mean, all three of our buildings are under construction and one's in finishing. We met with the moving contractors today. I didn't realize this until I started listening through the scope of about in the parking lot. You're going to see about 50 trailers in the parking lot at the high school. That is all the stuff in the schools that we have to move out of the schools in order to do new floors, new ceilings, new lights, and the renovations. So it's a major undertaking, and we're trying to get as many projects as we can ahead of schedule before the actual summer work starts.
Anybody else? Jerry, I just for clarification, so I know that I understood what you said. When we're talking about the fire alarm system, we told the electrical company that was bidding, this is who you're going to use ahead of time. We picked
Yep.
that. And that's a common practice. That's not something odd because we wanted to have.
No,
the
that
same
is a
company.
common, yeah, that's a
Okay.
common practice. In this situation where you have district-wide work occurring, the only difference is sometimes we do it a little bit sooner, and we may have them selected ahead of the bidding period starting. It is
Okay.
not out of the norm. You want to have that consistency across the board. And the only way to do that is for us to pull that piece out and get it. You don't want to contract direct with the fire alarm folks if you don't have to. You want to get
Okay.
them, because there's so much work that the electrician has to do to make that system work. We want that to be under one contract. So it is not
Okay.
uncommon to select
Okay.
ahead. Yep. And it
Okay,
is.
thanks. I just wanted to make
Yep.
sure that I understood what you said. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate it, Jerry.
All right. You're welcome. And you'll have a happy Thanksgiving.
You
Same to you.
too.
Thanks, you too.
Be safe. Okay, moving on to our presentation. This is the part of our meeting that we are required to do. It's the conversation about our learning plan through the COVID-19. And there are different points that we will be talking about throughout this section. And this is where we have public comment that will be in the middle of it. And that public comment will be directed specifically towards issues and concerns we have about what we're talking about with respect to the learning plan. We will have another public comment a little bit farther in the meeting. That's our regular public comment for anything else that anybody has a concern on. But we're going to have a specific one for the COVID learning plan. So that being said, Mr. Walmsley, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, well, good evening, everybody. We are, as Margaret said, we're here to talk about the COVID learning, extended COVID learning plan for the month of November. It's something that is required by law, that is reviewed and allowed for public comment every month. Several weeks ago, I had Mr. Berkmeyer craft a survey regarding, it went out to students and parents for both in-person and virtual learning. And it's been, like I said, it's been probably a month since we've had the results back, but we haven't had an opportunity to share them with the board. So tonight, I'd like to just highlight some of the responses that we received, though I'm not going to pinpoint all of them. But in your board packet, you do have copies of the responses for both the middle school in-person, from in-person students, from middle school virtual students, from high school in-person students, high school virtual students. And then there are two survey results from parents that have their students as in-person and parents who have their students at virtually. When you look at the middle school in-person students, you can look at the, again, there was not many that responded from the student perspective. This was sent to their school email address. Some of the things that were mentioned were talked about mask breaks from students. There were some that talked about the number of students. Some felt it was crowded. The one student in particular felt he would rather be he or she would rather be virtual because of the number of students that have elected for in-person. For the middle school virtual students, there was a challenges of the virtual students seeing the same things that in-person students see, such as experiments. A lot of that has, I believe, would have to do with the learning of the systems and being familiar as a teacher. And every week we've gotten better and better at this. There's been some technical issues that were reported at the first from virtual students, logging in, connections to Schoology. There were some things regarding the amount of printing some students had to do at home on their home printer. For some students, they reported it was harder to concentrate at home because of being a virtual student than it was to be if they were an in-person student. High school in-person students reported some of it was just procedural stuff, like there was a concern regarding having to wait outside of school until the doors opened at 7:30. Some of them were questioning the temperature readings. Some felt or perceived them to be useless. Just a reminder, that's just a screener for us. When the temperature readers go off into the red zone or beep, it's an area for the staff members to take a second look at that student. It's not an end all and be all, as we all know. Someone could come to school, have no temperature, and 2 hours later temperature forms. So it's just a screener. Some in-person students talked about some of their classmates not wearing masks, and they wish there was more consequences for those students not wearing masks. Many have reported that teachers had to constantly remind them. There was a thought process or a perception of inconsistency among staff enforcement of masks between classes. So again, this goes back to our concern of all the safety mechanisms that we put in place. For some high school virtual students, some felt that they didn't have as much attention that they receive versus an in-person student. Some, probably more of your tech savvy students, were trying to figure out ways to streamline our technology. Some suggested just use Microsoft Teams and not use the Schoology part at all, was one of the recommendations. Part of our logic and reason behind that, because there's so many more features that Schoology can do that we as an organization have not yet tapped into, but are planning, depending on the length that we are virtual, or even when we're back in person, there's some options for staff. One of the options that came across, or one of the concerns, was the communication of announcements to virtual students. They felt that they were missing out on some of the connections or some of the announcements. Interesting, we knew going into this that we weren't going to be perfect. So as we get these, it gives us a chance to sit back and reflect. You're right. Maybe we need to make that improvement and figure out how we're going to improve. Some of the in-person parent responses were the requiring students to wear masks. Some were supportive. Some felt it violated their constitution. So we were there was on both sides of the coin there. Some suggested that students should have access more readily to virtual instruction when they're sick. And I think that's some of the items that we've talked about. Some virtual parents talked about the length of time in front of a computer. And we do recognize that both from K to 12, because there is some downtime just in a normal classroom, passing out papers, lining up. That's not necessarily direct instruction time, but it is time that has to be accounted for in a classroom. Some virtual parents made statements about wishing there was more individualized time with the teachers and their students. There was some connection issues, some tech issues, which I believe there are still some that are happening, but we have significantly reduced that as a district-wide. School communication with virtual students, again, such as when class rings are ordered, or yearbook, or spiritware. There seems to be a perception of a disconnect between what in-person students are hearing and what they are. And it's something that we will definitely look at. And responding times to virtual students, there was some concerns or questions about improving that, which again, as we work through and become, obviously staff are becoming much more familiar with the system and how we're operating. I hope, again, these were 4 or 5 weeks ago survey results, so hopefully all that has significantly improved. Any questions on the survey results for the first part of the presentation?
Anybody?
I guess.
Sorry,
go ahead.
No, I guess my biggest question is that we're talking about, I know that the survey was a month ago. And when we get back to face-to-face learning, and those parents and students that will still choose virtual, what's the plan to correct this? I know some of the things you've said that, we think that it's it's worked out since that time, but how do we know that it's worked out? And what are we going to get? Will that be next month? Because, you know, some of the things when we talk about people not wearing their masks like they're supposed to, I mean, that's when we go back to face-to-face learning, that should be something. What's our plan to tighten that up? And we have one of the parents' statement was, at the informational meetings, potential virtual learners were promised to have all the same materials that face-to-face students received. However, that's kind of a problem. So what are we doing? Has that improved? I mean, now we're all virtual, but when we go back to face-to-face, I just want to know what's our plan to respond to this survey.
Well, from an organizational perspective, as when Mr. Berkmeyer sent this out, I know the principals looked at this and took it to heart. We have been trying to accommodate and address trying to meet the needs of all kids. From my perspective, I would anticipate, I don't know if by the December 14th meeting, based on where we are with Thanksgiving and when we would have the opportunity to physically meet with staff because we don't meet with them till I believe December 14th actually, but definitely by the January the meeting in January we'll review this. We should have an opportunity to at least have how we've reflected on them and the changes that we've made as an organization. Because there are some easy ones that I believe could be easily fixed. It's just in the process of rolling everything out, it didn't come to our mind at first. And not that it was an error on everybody's part, it's just a learning curve that we all experience. And some of these I know have already been fixed by building because they've already looked at the results and made quick changes. So I would say definitely at the January meeting, we'd have a plan of how we could address them. My plan is to send out another survey probably right after the holidays to see how things are going. I'd like to get a snapshot from parents with the virtual because all parents have experienced it. What were the positives? What were the things that we can improve on? So I'm going back and forth to sending something out before the holidays, being the Christmas break, to get that snapshot of parents. Okay. So there will be another survey coming out for parents as well as students.
Okay. I think we're doing a very good job. I'm just saying that there are some things in here. So just, and I understand that the next meeting probably won't work. I get all of that, but I just want to know that we're going to have some kind of answer as we're moving along for when we go back to face-to-face and still have virtual students.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is definitely a learning curve for all of us. Right? That's definitely a priority for all of us.
Okay.
Okay. The second item that I would like to share with you is part of the law requires us to report the two-way response communication. I am going to share my screen with you. You should see here in front of you what we reported in October. Week 1, you'll see that it's broken down by preschool, GSRP, elementary, middle, and high school, and then a district average. According to the pupil accounting, a two-way response, in order to count it, that it's a successful two-way response, was at least 2 present codes were for a student within 1 week. So when they're doing this, they're applying a formula or a way of counting two-way communication for all types of virtual scenarios. So you have some districts that students meet every other day. There's a hybrid method. You have some that it's a virtual school that they're in. They have teachers that only teach virtual, and you have teachers that teach in person. As everybody knows, our teachers are managing both. So they take attendance every hour for the secondary and every morning and afternoon for the elementary school. So as long as there are 2 present codes in a week's time period, and I believe it's Wednesday through Tuesday is the measurement period, then we can count it as a positive two-way communication. These are the numbers that are reported last time. We went up through week 6. So where I'm going to report beginning on week 7 was the week of October 19th. You can see here we had a 99.42% two-way interaction rate. The week of October 26th, which was week 8, we had a 99.04 average. The week of 11/2, we had a 99.42 average. The week of November 9th, we had a 99.1 average. And at the December meeting, I will report back on the 11/16 and 11/23 this week, and the November 30th week, and the December 7th week. So we'll have several more weeks. But it's important to note that the first one that I'll be reporting back to you on the week 11 was due to staffing issues. This is where I made the decision to move to 100% virtual because we had trouble staffing our building through Thanksgiving. So I'm expecting, though I can't say for certain, that this week our averages might be lower than usual or than we've been seeing.
Wow.
Any other questions or any questions regarding two-way communication?
Ryan, just to clarify the two-way communication for those weeks, that's the two-way communication with the students that were virtual.
Correct.
Okay. And so that means what? That the students were in attendance in the classroom, or that the teacher is having an actual two-way communication?
It means
Directly
the
with the
student was in attendance in the classroom. That is the way it's measured, that the student who is virtual logged in, and when they took attendance, because we are doing synchronous instruction, they were in attendance.
Okay. So then for this week that we're at, where everyone's virtual, why will the numbers be lower?
Because we may have some families that, due to childcare arrangement, were not able to have someone allow their kids to get online. There may have been some that they might have some technology issues at first. We were distributing hotspots. We have gone through all 100 of our hotspots. We should have the other next 25 in, I believe they're supposed to be in tomorrow, if they didn't arrive today. So we have a list of about 15 families that we will be issuing more hotspots to. So there could be a variety of reasons because we went virtual for 100%. I could be wrong. We could still have a high number, which is good.
Okay, but I guess I'm confused why we wouldn't have a high number, because if we're all virtual, and if we have, because I know that we have families with issues with getting on and all the hotspots we're getting out, but what's our obligation if a kid's having that kind of problem? What's our obligation for pupil accounting and all that? Shouldn't we make some kind of two-way communication, whether that's a phone call, some kind of reaching out to that parent? We should be 100%.
The expectation is that if a student doesn't log in, there's a communication that the parent does with the student. It could be a phone call, depending on the age of the student. It could be an email directly saying, hey, what's going on? You weren't in class today. After I believe it's after the third one, it goes to the office to try to figure out what's going on with that family. I don't know off the top of my head if anybody has made it that far, because we've only done this now for, it will be 5 days. Today was our 5th day for last week and today. When you look at this average, you're looking at Monday, we had no school because we didn't have enough staff.
Right.
So we spent the day with teachers, which would have been normally their PD today and tomorrow was moved to Monday. So Tuesday was our first day of virtual. We know we had families that did not log in on Tuesday because there were issues or sitter arrangements. There's a variety of issues. So assuming they logged in on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday at least twice, the numbers shouldn't change. They should be similar to what we have now. So in order to have the two-way communication. But if they didn't, that's where the numbers may drop because of the, again, each individual case is a little different. I have not run the absence rate, how many students have been absent each day. That is one thing that I have to run after we, see what our normal attendance rates were the last 5 days versus what they have been in previous weeks. Now
So
that's a different number than two-way communication.
Right. So the responsibility for the two-way communication to here, that the office is checking?
It starts at the classroom teacher, that if there
Oh,
is
okay.
it starts as a classroom teacher. So if a student, and it may be an email that a student or a parent has sent a teacher that says, hey, we're having trouble logging in. Teacher
Mhm.
responds, no problem, we'll get you what you missed or whatever. At least we know there's a contact and we understand what's going on.
Okay.
If there's a situation where we're not getting anything, then the expectation is that the staff during the afternoon, part of that time is they're reaching out to figure out with family what's going on. We do have, I know of 3 families now in the district that two of them, the T-Mobile hotspots are a challenge or are not working in their service area.
Okay.
Eric Lamont has gone to the AT&T store to figure out if we can get that. We're just trying to figure out other options that we have available for those families who are struggling getting the connection. But the first step is the teacher to make contact. If the teacher's not getting anywhere, then the next step would be the office and the principals to follow up to see if they can get in contact or connection with the parents.
Brian, is that the typical way you do it when everybody's face to face? That isn't the office responsible for tracking who's not there for the day? Why is it on the teachers to do it? I know that they need the contact time, but why is it the initial, if they don't show up in the morning, why is it on the teacher to do that, not the office?
I think there's two perspectives. One, the office staff still does the daily attendance. They take the calls from parents who have called their student out, they're not feeling well, they still put those absences in. We still do the automated calls when a student hasn't come to class or reported to class based on the teacher's attendance of the classroom. The intent is by doing the targeted instruction or whole class instruction in the morning, and in the afternoon, it's intended to be targeted instruction, kids who need extra help or follow up for those that we haven't. It's intended to be at the teacher level first. The office staff still does it. They still make the effort if there's an absence in the system and we don't have a, particularly at the elementary school, we don't have a reason or a call from the parent.
And Sherry, what I was asking, I get, you're talking about attendance, and you're right, that's an office job. I was just asking with respect to the two-way communication, are the kids in the classroom for the virtual learning on the report that we're getting? That's why I was asking because to me, that's not for the office to figure out, that's for the teacher to figure out. But if it's just attendance like you're talking, then yes, I agree. It's an office job, not the teacher's job.
Okay.
Any other questions regarding two-way communication? I'll just leave you with this on the two-way. It's a system that was developed statewide, and obviously we report to the Macomb Intermediate School District. So how we use it in Power School, it's one system that is applied to all districts regardless of how they do virtual instruction. So just because you are attending class doesn't necessarily mean that you're interacting. If you know what I mean, from the perspective, I attend class, maybe today I'm more listening. There's not a lot of interaction. Where other districts where I'm not in class with a teacher every day, I may see the teacher only twice a week. My day might be Thursday and Tuesday. Then there has to be a documented connection back and forth. And so I think it's just important to recognize that this is just 2 present codes within the week's time frame. For Richmond, at elementary school, they have really, the in-person learning, they had really 10 times to get 2 of those every AM and PM each day. In middle school and high school, in a week's time period, they have, high school has 30 times to get 2 of those. Think of it this way, every hour for 5 days a week. And middle school has 35 times because they have a 7-period day. So we have more time, contact time with students than other virtual schools, which is ultimately better for kids. Okay, I will, instructional delivery discussion. As everybody knows, last, I think it was Sunday, based on information I'd received on Saturday and then again on Sunday, and the number of absences in the system, it was quickly realized we were not going to be able to staff our district. And when I look at that, I could look at it just as one day, but I got to look at the reason staff are out. And there were many staff that are out, not because they tested positive, but they were required to be in quarantine. So those staff members were not in the building for a period of time. I already know that the week after Thanksgiving, we have 2, potentially now 3 staff members that will not be available to instruct in person the week we get back. They're in quarantine. All right. So the question then becomes, at what point as a district do we have enough in-house staff to be able to cover those absences? As a board, you were very very smart and proactively supporting my recommendation to hire 5, trying to get 6, but two substitutes at every building. We currently have 5 substitutes because we have utilized those substitutes in a variety of fashion. When we haven't had enough staff because of absences, we've been able to redeploy them to different buildings. When staff have been absent, they have been trained in how to use the system. When staff have been quarantined and they've had to teach from home, they were in the classroom monitoring students while the teacher was teaching virtually. So we've used them in a variety of fashion. So on that Sunday, I recommended I made the decision, I guess, to do a short term to get us through Thanksgiving and looking at the being able to staff the building. We moved to 100% virtual. I received many comments from parents, both positive and negative. And in your packet, I put 2 examples. One parent who sent me a research article as well as a YouTube video. The YouTube video was regarding a constitutional attorney who spoke about everything going on with the pandemic, and it's about an hour long, and it was very interesting. There was another parent who I would say would be a silent. I think she used as a silent. I don't know if she used silent majority, but she used a silent parent in the community who just doesn't want to get into the back and forth or position, but thanked the district and was more for encouraging for the virtual because of everything going on. So we have parents at all ends of the spectrum. So tonight we need to look at our plan. We need to look at whether we're going to continue virtually or whether we're going to come back in person. Now there's a caveat on that. That same Sunday that I put out the order, the Governor Whitmore and the Department of Health and Human Services issued an emergency order shutting down grades 9 through 12 instruction for 3 weeks. It was beginning Wednesday, I believe it was November 18th, and going through Tuesday, December 8th, with the idea that students could return, I believe on it's Wednesday, December 9th, unless there's an extension of that order. In the order, they left the decision for kindergarten through 8th grade up to the local decisions. And there have been many districts across the state that have a variety of solutions. I'm going to share with you what my recommendation is and the rationale behind it. I'm going to share the screen and explain to you, again, this is my recommendation. As a board, you have the obligation under the state law, section 98A, to either renew our current plan And if you do that, then kindergarten through or preschool through 8th grade would return to in-person learning on Monday, November 30th. And high school would still remain out till December 8th, which is based on the emergency order. Or you can amend that plan. And that's what we're here tonight. So let me share my screen with you at the moment. My recommendation to the board is that we extend virtual learning through January 8th, Friday, January 8th. And let me explain why. The calendar on your left is the board approved calendar that was approved on November 9th. And you can see the 2 dates that we were originally anticipating to allow teachers time for planning and getting ready for in-person. You know, there's been speculation that this was really not, was planned all along. I can tell you, I never planned any of this to happen 3-4 weeks ago. This has been a daily and almost hourly change or reviewing the data, looking at where we are as a district. I'm thankful we had the opportunity and we've done the stuff that we did, because the transition from in-person to virtual could have been a lot worse. And so what we did prepared us to get to this stage that was beyond our control to some level. There are some dates on there that are highlighted that are what I'm calling what concern me. You have November 26th, which is this Thursday, which is Thanksgiving. You have the December 24th, 25th, which is Christmas Eve. You have December 31st and January 1st, which are New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. You also have on there April 4th and May 31st, which are in the future, and hopefully we will be at a different place than we are today. But if you just take in the next couple of weeks, we have opportunities for families to gather. And you can't turn on the news or a TV or a radio without someone talking about case count, etc. When we started this process back in January, and every week I have met along with the other 20 superintendents in the county with the health department of Macomb County. Throughout this entire process, even at the early stages, they were concerned if districts were between the 6 and 10% positivity rate. We stayed below a 6% rate for a long time. We are now, as of today, Macomb County has approximately an 18% positivity rate. You've seen other districts and how they've responded. You've heard about other counties, but I'm talking about Richmond in this particular case. I am concerned not for necessarily that we are going to have positive cases. I'm concerned we're going to have staff in quarantine. I already know next week I have 2 definite, maybe a third staff member, once I get more information, that are not going to be able to teach in person. So my choices are going to be, if I opt to do in person, or I recommend to do in person, I'm going to almost be forced as a district to make a decision on closing day by day if I don't have enough staff people to cover. Our intent, and you can ask any administrator, we spent well over an hour last week just talking about this plan. Our intent is we want kids in school. We want to be in school. And I say this, and I've said it in previous board meetings, I say it every chance I get. I am blessed and count my blessings as a superintendent that I have a staff that wants to teach. I have a teachers union that wants to be in person, and you guys are firsthand knowledge of it. Throughout this entire process, they have wanted to come to school. They haven't fought us. They haven't demanded that we go virtual. They have worked with us, and it's been very successful. But I can say that there are staff that are extremely concerned from the perspective of, and you saw it in some of the surveys with students, the ability of just taking precautionary measures. We know we have staff who hear about students that gather over the weekends at events, and kids talk about it. And we have staff that are concerned, number one, for their own safety and health, and what what may or may not be brought back to their own families. If we know on on November 26th is Thanksgiving, and there is a potential of families to get together and gather, and I'm not talking gather like the governor or the health department, gather like they normally do. We have a 2-week window approximately where there's a risk that we're going to start seeing more positive cases, more exposures, more students that I'm going to have to put in quarantine, or staff. We know it's going to happen at Christmas. I wish I could say that everybody's going to follow the guidance of the CDC. It's not going to happen. I'm a realist in that aspect. So if you look at the chart to the right, currently right now the high school has 13 days that they're going to be virtual. The dark golden are required by the governor. If we bring back elementary school on November 30th, they will have had 6 days of virtual instruction. If you extend that time period to the week after January 1st, that gives us that week to figure out, do we even have enough staff to open for in-person? We're talking 23 total days of virtual instruction. I understand this would be a challenge for parents, especially two families that have both parents working, families that do not have other family members who could help them in getting their students online and virtually. This would be a challenge. My concern is it's more of a risk for me calling school because I don't have staff the day before and parents scrambling than developing a plan and say, okay, because we have 3 holidays coming up, we know families are going to get together. We know cases have been on the rise, positive cases. We know hospital rates, and take what you will with what's reported. We know that there's a vaccine coming. The general public's probably going to be the last one that gets it. It's probably going to be first responders and healthcare providers, and work down the chain there. For planning purposes for families, to allow us to make sure our staff are ready to come back, able to come back. That's why I'm recommending January 8th as our date. We stay virtually through January 8th. This hasn't been an easy decision. The administrators and I, last week, and I actually had Mrs. Shad, our business manager there, spent a lot of time talking pluses, minuses. If you did 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, that puts you to December 10th. You basically have 8 days before the holiday. Again, I'm talking quarantine. What we know is the practice out there. I believe in the best interest of everybody if we tell parents right now, this is our plan. We're going to stay virtually till this point because of reasons that we stated. Our plan is to bring students back on January 11th in person. It allows us to get through 3 very challenging points coming up within the next month. Questions?
Well, Brian, I think we all should be able to have questions or make conversation here, but I think we missed a point. I'd like to hear the virtual learning that we've done
Today.
leading up to this meeting. I know that I have some questions about it, and I don't know. I'd like to hear from each building administrator how things are going in those buildings, and then as a board have conversation then about what your recommendation is. But I think we need to hear how it's going so far.
The first person I saw is Mr. Castle. Mr. Castle, would you mind starting just from your perspective on the last week, what you're hearing, things you've witnessed and experienced being 100% virtual?
Sure. I guess I got to stop showing up on the top row then if you see me first, huh? Well, I can say that Last spring definitely prepared us for now. I feel like we have a much better grasp of where we are in the high school than we were last spring. Ms. Borwick and I have been doing daily rounds around, kind of peeking in on the classrooms and having one-on-one conversations with our teachers. And it's been overwhelmingly positive just from the fact of, I expected kind of the apathy to set in for some of our teenagers, kind of, they knew this was coming. They were looking forward to what they perceived as time off. But in my discussions with the teachers, it's been the exact opposite. They're talking about how impressed they are with the percentage of students that have actually shown up. They're there on time, they're active, they're engaged. They're very excited and happy with the amount of assignments that have been turned in. So from the high school's point of view, this last week has been overwhelmingly positive in the response that we've gotten, both from our students in attendance, their participation, and from the parents. I fully anticipate every day when I walk in early that my blinking red light on the phone will be going off, and I've got 3 or 4 parent phone calls saying that we've had connection issues or we can't get on. But the exact opposite has been true. We've had very minimal concerns. We did have some hotspot issues at first, and I think we had a power outage that first day due to the wind last week. But since we've gotten those issues handled, we've been very happily surprised with the amount of students we've had on and the active engagement we've had with our students.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question. What about students that have normally spend some time in the counselor's offices or talk to a social worker or anything like that? Is there anything are they still able to do that? Do they make appointments online? How is that working out?
They are. Ms. Laratanda, who is our social worker, and Ms. Leepak have been in their offices working on making those connections with the students that they normally have. Right now they've been primarily reaching out to the students that they know they have concern with and have had prior conversations with. But in conversations that I've had with both Ms. Leepak and Mrs. Laratanda, the plan has been try to extend that web to try to encompass other students that may have had some issues and concerns. That kind of the isolation of being home, and obviously the weather's turning darker and colder here, so we anticipate that more of our students may have mental health concerns. So we're trying to expand that web to make sure that we catch all of our students that may have issues.
Okay, so then are they I know you're saying that they're reaching out to the ones that they kind of already know and have experience with. Are they getting responses from them? Are they making contact, or I know you're saying they're trying, but I don't know if they are or they aren't, or
Sure. All I can base it on right now is the amount of times I've walked in their offices and they're on their phones talking to students. I know that they're busy all day long from the time they come in to the time they get back, but I could definitely put together a list of the number of students they're talking to and get that back to you, Sandra.
okay, I don't know that that's necessary. I was just, I just wanted to make sure that they're being, contacted or whatever.
I would say, I'm just going to add to what Mr. Castle said. We've dealt with just recently students that we've noticed there's a situation. Things have been said online or reported, and we've had to act it. And it's pulling the social worker, or if it involves the counselor, or even the liaison officer, helping to address a specific issue that we have with students. Part of the reason why in our plan that we ask teachers to reach out, teachers know the students the best over the people in the building because they see their habits every day. And if there's something that a teacher hears or sees, or well, this is strange that this student's not connecting or engaging, that can send the red flags to get the support systems or the reach out, whether it's Mrs. Laratunda or Miss Jolie at the middle school or Mrs. Perry at the middle elementary school. It allows us to be able to start the ball rolling to get the support mechanisms are there. We have the ability for parents, if they're seeing something, that we can utilize our resources to help their students, even if they're in a virtual setting.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we really pride ourselves in at the high school is the relationships that our teachers have developed with our students and getting to know them. So then if they do see that there's something that's not quite right with our students, they make that connection to Mrs. Borwick and she reaches out either personally or she reaches out to Mrs. Leepak or Laratanda to make those connections.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bartels, you want to go next?
Wait, I'm not done with Mr. Castle.
Oh, All right,
I didn't get to ask my question yet.
okay.
Mr. Castle, my question on the, we got the schedule, the virtual schedule, and I'm just asking at the high school level, the second half of the day where each hour talks about additional and targeted instruction / support. How is that determined? What students are getting that instruction?
Sure. So what I did last week is we sent out a document to our high school staff asking each of the high school staff members to identify between 3 and 5 students that they felt were at risk or high risk, or actually, for lack of a better term, needed some special attention and some intensive instruction. They were to return those to us in the office so Ms. Borwick and I could follow up with them. But that time for
Oh, sure, it stops in the middle. Sure.
Well, until he gets back, I'll go ahead and go. This
That
is
sounds
Keith.
good.
Yeah. How we got to where we
And
are
say
today,
Oh, wait, he's back. Hold on.
I'm sorry, someone cut out.
you did.
Oh,
Yes, you did.
all right, where did I leave off?
You were
You
done.
were explaining how the kids, how the teachers pick the kids. My question is, how is that determined when you say a kid is at risk because they're failing, at risk because they're getting a C- and maybe with a little extra help, they could get a B or an A? How does that work?
Sure. So I'm going to look at my kids and give them a dirty look to get off the internet here so I can get a better connection.
Okay.
But
All right.
so what we've done is it really depends on, because at first when I sent this document out, I had a couple of teachers come to me and say, well, I have, I've got all honors kids this hour, or I have all AP kids this hour, and they're all doing terrific. How do I determine who's at risk? And our discussion with Ms. Borwick and I was to identify the 3 to 5 students that you feel would most benefit from the extra assistance. So in an honors course or an AP course,
Oh, those Castle kids are ruining it here.
Let's, you wanna
Go ahead,
start?
Mr. Bartels.
Yep, Mr. Bartel.
We're gonna. Oh,
Oh, no.
Mr. Bartels, we can't hear you.
I think you're muted. Maybe?
He doesn't look muted.
Nope.
Maybe your headphones weren't plugged in.
did I get kicked off again?
Yes.
Yeah, we moved on to Mr. Bartels.
But now, since we can't hear him, finish up.
Okay, so I'm going to assume that maybe I got partway through this last one. Basically, what we've done is asked our teachers to use their professional discretion and determine individually which students they feel would best determine from that. We were very specific in saying that this is a short-term period. So after 3 weeks, I've asked them to reevaluate which students they feel are still in need of that extra assistance. It may be those same 3 to 5 students, but hopefully they've been the benefactor of that extra assistance, and that we're able to transition to other students as we move through this time frame. Hopefully we're back in
Okay.
person.
Okay, but if I'm a kid, Mr. Castle, that wasn't identified by the teacher,
Sure.
but I want extra help, I'm able to get in on these time
Absolutely.
frames,
Absolutely.
right? Okay,
Yep.
okay, all
I
right.
have two
thank
quick
you.
questions.
Yep.
Okay, how as a
Oh, wait,
parent?
no, sorry. This isn't time for parent
Okay.
question yet. We haven't got to the public comment part, so
Oh, sorry.
hold on. Nope, you're good. Hold on, we'll get to you in just a minute. Okay, Mr. Bartels.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
now we can.
All right. So to get to where we are today is last week, when we met on Monday, we met with, we had a general meeting with everybody, and then Mr. Birkmeyer and I met with our 4th grade team, our 5th grade team, and then our 6th through 8th grade team of teachers to come up with a schedule given the morning session until 11:25, and then with the afternoon session starting from noon to 3. Now, I will say one of the rumors or thoughts out there that spread rapidly through the student body was 11:25, we're done with school. Well, not so fast. We have created groups in every grade level where every student has something to do from noon to 3. Now, 6th grade through 8th grade has made up strategic groups. Basically roughly split their class into 2 groups. So say if you had 20 kids in a class, you got a group of 10 and a group of 10. So the group of 10 we'll call it a blue group, would meet Mondays and Wednesdays during their hour with their teachers. And then Tuesday and Thursday, the white team or white group would meet with their teachers during their hours. And then Friday's open office hours from noon to 3 for anybody for extra help, homework help, getting caught up, further explanations, so on and so forth. So the blue and white group is we are attacking our struggling learners and those that need additional help, but we're also trying to elevate our high achievers because we don't want them lost or left in the process either. So in the afternoon, my blue group might be a deeper discussion on the outsiders that I can have. So I'm going to have a deeper discussion, classroom discussion, chat with the group. Well, the white group might read the next chapter. You know, they might have their silent reading time or work on vocab. Or in math, they'll work on extra math problems where with my blue group, we're going to work on story problems. And then tomorrow, my white group will work on story problems and then do the reverse, the regular practice with the math. So every group has something to do in the afternoon, and groups are well-defined and communicated to the students. Similarly, in 4th and 5th grade, students know who their groups are. And the 4th and 5th grade teachers have responded to Mr. Burkmeyer and I by Wednesday or Thursday of last week because we wanted to make sure everybody was getting on and doing what they needed to do. The response and participation has been remarkable for all students. And I would agree with you that there's no reason for us not to have 100% two-way communication if it just takes one teacher communicating with a student twice. So to clarify with the attendance in our building is the robocalls are still going out. So from 8 a.m. until 11:25, if a student is marked absent and not there virtually, the robocall goes out to the parents and it's within 5 minutes. So those calls have been less and less because, you know, kids are getting on in time and so on and so forth. And then the teachers have done a nice job. If a student says, well, I was there, 6 minutes, the teachers have been working with the students. So those robocalls do go out. So what we mean by attendance with our teachers is if they didn't make a connection with a student and the student wasn't there in class, then they're emailing or calling that student saying, hey, you missed today, what's going on? And they're doing that during the afternoon time. If they miss for 3 straight days, then the teacher is reaching out to the parent. I haven't had your son or daughter in class. If within that 24 hours, they can't make contact or communication, it's then turned over to Anthony or I. And then we call, and because then we start talking about truancy, the other half of it, the incorrigibility, just because we're at home we're in school. And so the responsibility is a two-way street there. So after that 3rd time, if the teacher doesn't get with a parent, they turn it over us and we have those conversations. We've been in day 6. Today was day 6 or day 5 because Monday was our planning day. And we haven't had any of those phone calls and haven't had any teachers reach out to us and saying, hey, I haven't gotten a hold of so-and-so. So our assumption would be that Our teachers are doing what they're supposed to. They have the entire 13 years I've been there. So I don't doubt them. So I think it's going pretty good. I know there are bumps and along the road a little bit. The white group and the blue group took a couple days for kids to figure out and parents. We sent out an email explaining it to all groups. We sent out a voicemail to all groups, just explaining that the day's not over at 11:25. There is work to do. And some of it's independent, but it's still work to do. And you have that 3-hour block to do it. But every other day it's not independent. You're directly with the teacher in the afternoon. And Miss Fortuna, you asked Andy, our social work, our speech, have schedules as well, the students they service, and they have their team meetings set up. Mr. Burkmeyer, I know, communicates with Jolie daily, making sure that her caseload is being served. Mrs. Clausen, Mrs. Wojak, and their caseloads have communicated their caseloads to us again, just to double check, and sent us, because some of those schedules fluctuate with the afternoon session versus the morning session. What's best going to meet those students' needs? Is it a little extra help in ELA, or is it a PA class? Well, it might be a little more extra help in ELA. So that's what we're going to do for you. So a lot of those conversations have been had, and schedules being adjusted to meet students' needs.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bartels, just a question. When I look at your schedule, says the different hours, and you look at the Lee School schedule, it talks about their specials classes. I'm assuming in here, if I'm whatever time I'm having a phys ed class, STEAM, choir, all that, that's all rolled into whatever these hours are, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. And then in the afternoon,
yep.
Go ahead. You're probably going to answer what I'm going to ask. Go ahead.
They put their students in groups too. In the afternoon is enrichment. It would be an enrichment activity related to what they're going over.
So the art class would have an enrichment to whatever project they're working on, is what you're saying.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
And there are times, the teachers have communicated to me, there are times where their groupings are fluid, because in order to best meet the needs, like Fridays and open office hours. But if there are students that are struggling with the assessments that week, homework, formative assessments, and the teacher sees it, the teacher then will reach out to those students and say, hey, we're going to have a meeting Friday instead of an open office hour.
Okay.
So those, and then like I said, the groupings, especially in 4th and 5th grade, because they deal with a homeroom and splitting in a homeroom up into 3 groups. Some of those groups will be fluid too, depending on where a student falls with the current curriculum in front of them. They might be in the best group in ELA, but they struggle in math. So if they keep struggling, then they're going to be put in the appropriate group to meet their needs. So it's fluid based on how they perform. We're hoping this is short term, but we're making long-term decisions, for consistency for our students first and teachers second.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Question for Mr. Bartels? Okay, Mr. Koshin. Mr. Koshin, we can't hear you.
Okay, I'll get closer to the microphone. Is that better?
There you go.
Okay. At elementary, one of the first challenges we had was just to get devices to all students. So it was about a week prior to our 100% virtual. They got laptops for kindergarten and first grade students, something that they have not had before. Normally they just have tablets that they can use in the classroom. So going through what technology that we had, so that was one challenge working with the IT department. They did get all devices out to all kindergarten and first grade students. The first challenge we had probably on the first day of virtual learning was just that some of the devices weren't working, whether it was a phone, possibly might have been the camera. But we have definitely worked through some of those challenges. So everything's gone smoothly. One thing I did just to learn the system a little bit more and see how teachers did. I was quarantined last week, so I did some virtual observations, which is a little bit different from my end. But what I did, I logged in just as if I was a virtual student. I was able to see the classroom, how the teacher interacted with the students and with the virtual students. So it gave me a chance just to see if there's any other support teachers may have needed. Upon my return and with Mrs. Manguni, we visited all teachers that Wednesday morning, which would have been the second day of 100% virtual. Checked in with them at 7:30 before school started to see if they needed any support or how things were going. Everybody said that no, they worked through some challenges on Tuesday, but what really helped out is every teacher at the elementary at some point had virtual students, whether it's a student who was virtual to start the school year off, whether students were quarantined. So all teachers had some experience teaching virtual students. So that definitely helped out. Everybody kind of learn how to use Teams and Schoology, ability and for the benefit of the students. Checking the teachers on Thursday. So this was then day number 3 of the virtual learning. Every response went very smooth. Students logging in, they know how to get on everything. So at this point, there's no concerns by teachers about students logging in, about students participating. So that has gone very well. Just as time has gone on, so that's well. I would say the parent concerns we've gotten mostly is at times Schoology. They're not able to log on at Schoology, but those are taken care of quickly either by secretaries in the office able to troubleshoot a little bit, or just sending that information to the helpline for technology. I would say comparative complaints that or the concerns I've gotten about students wearing masks, probably about 10 times more than students being 100% virtual. So I think, like Castle said, I go in my office now, I have very few emails, I have very few phone calls, where when we're face to face, it was almost daily or time a week about students wearing masks and things like that. For our schedule, if you look in the afternoon, elementary is a little bit different because teachers always have small group instruction, especially in the morning with their ELA block. They have guided reading groups. And what we stress is for teachers in the morning, that it's mostly the whole group core instruction. There's less than 3 hours in the morning for the instruction piece, and then all the individual or the small group takes in the afternoon. So every teacher has a schedule where they have the groups, which they've already had set up throughout the course of the school year. They can meet in small groups for reading. Some teachers have small groups for math, but then they also have some individual time where if a student needs individual time, each teacher probably has about half hour, maybe 45 minutes in the afternoon where they have some time. So it can be individual students who need some additional help with homework or just the assignment. So all of our specialist teachers, once again, they have their 25 minutes in the morning with their group, and then they have 25 minutes in the afternoon where they can do some enrichment activities for those students with the specials. And then with their special education staff, they are meeting almost to the minute, just supporting all the students who need some additional needs on following all their IEPs. So I would say just, in general, elementary is going relatively smooth with 100% virtual.
Okay, does anyone have any questions?
I do. So my son's in the elementary, and I would say myself and a few other parents I know have the hiccup of transitioning from their main class over to their special, whether it's just a lack of, learning how to click between the different tabs, go back to Schoology. And some of the specials, they have to open up a different link to go to it. Is there something easier we can do with the special so that these young kids don't have to figure out how to move from one class to another? Because a lot of families are working and they aren't always sitting next to their child, learning how to get them back and forth from these classes. And the times that I was able to help him, a lot of kids weren't even in the specials. So I'm curious to know from a specials teachers, are you getting a full participation? Or is this just a learning curve where we have to work more with them to show them how to go from one class to another?
Yeah, I'd say a little bit. I mean, I know our attendance is up pretty good in the specials without looking at exactly, but I haven't had any parents call me or email with any concerns about that. And I haven't heard teachers saying that they don't have many students in their class. That's one thing that does need to be done, just like at the middle school, at the high school, students have to leave one class meeting, join another one. So yeah, they do have to physically leave their classroom teacher's classroom meeting in order to join their specials teachers. Once again, I will reach out to specials teachers tomorrow, just get some feedback from them to see if they're having any issues with students logging in or students not being in attendance. So I will follow up with that tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Can I just follow up? I guess, Jessica, can I ask, when you're saying they're going into the specials and it's Schoology, but then they got to go somewhere else? I thought we were all doing the same thing. What does that mean, they're going somewhere else?
So like he goes from his main classroom in Schoology, he has to leave the meeting and then in Teams, and then he goes back to Schoology and goes to his special that's assigned for him. And then sometimes there's like a YouTube link that they have to click on.
Okay.
And if he
Okay.
doesn't have help and he's not familiar with how to, copy and paste that link into, say, a Chrome browser, it can be kind of overwhelming. And if these parents don't have somebody helping their child transition, it can be a little confusing. So that was a pain point for us, and I'm sure it's a pain point for other parents.
Right. It's just one of those unique situations, whereas, the middle school students and high school students, they switch meetings every, 25 minutes as they go with their schedule. Both with elementary, we're dealing with students who, don't have all the developmental skills, don't have all the experience with technology, and, they do need parent support. So definitely understanding that that's a little bit of a different learning curve at the elementary, is just getting students used to it, and also, supporting parents so they understand the switches that need to be made as students leave their classroom teacher to go on to their specials teachers also. So that's one thing that we'll continue to work on, and as we try to make things as smooth as possible, and then also support the students and the parents as we go through this.
So then, Mr. Koshin, then with respect to that, if I'm a elementary parent and in the specials class, if I can't get in, or it's 25 minutes and I don't get in till 15 minutes in, or I miss it with the problem, what is the process for me to be able to get that work and get it done to the teacher?
Yep, they just need to email the teacher. Then we get that a lot where, parents may be having some technical difficulty, just able to log on, is either call the office because they know, they can contact the office right away, or sometimes they use some different communication with teachers, Class Dojo, Remind, and they can just send the classroom teacher a quick message, just let them know that they were unable to log on, and then we just follow up with a phone call or with an email. So yeah, that's just a two-way communication with the teacher, just to, make sure that the teacher knows that the student and the parents have some difficulty logging on, and the teacher follows up with any assignments or anything that needs to be caught up.
Okay, and so then in the afternoon, when you have your additional and targeted instruction that you were explaining, then if these specials are going on at that same time, how is it that a student is going to their specials enrichment and enrichment? Is it required, or are they in their targeted instruction support? How are they both going on at the same time? And how do I pick as a parent?
Right. What we did on Monday, the day we had off, teachers, especially at the elementary, had to communicate, because we have the teachers who are coming up with their small groups and when they're going to meet their small groups. We have our title services. They're still meeting with their students that they see. We have the specials teachers who are doing their enrichment in the afternoon also. So it's just all the communication is we have set schedules, so teachers know exactly when other groups are going on, so there's no conflict. Parents, students do not have to choose to go to it, all laid out, so there's no conflict at all.
Okay, I don't know that I caught that, but I guess I'm just, as a parent though, It's the worrying about, am I making sure I'm getting that enrichment, or am I doing this? I don't have to choose.
No, they do not have to
I
choose.
can do, they can do both. It's just a matter of getting it turned in, like you said, let the teacher know. The special part, I'm not going to get that turned in until later tonight, something like that. So, because I'm sure there would be enrichment needed for like the art class, right? So if I, as a parent, I have the ability to get the enrichment that I need in the regular classroom as well as the other one, and I've got time to be able to get both of that done.
Yep, there's no.
Am I making sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, yep, both schedules overlap. So when there's specials enrichment for first grade, for example, there's nothing else going on at that time. So if teachers don't have any group going on, they just at 25 minutes specifically for the specials enrichment. When Title does their group work, they don't have any other conflicts at that time. So that's one thing with elementary, they work very closely, make sure that their schedules all work out together. So parents, students don't have to choose, which enrichment or which support they need. So we just have plenty of time in the afternoon to make sure everyone gets all the support that they need.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anybody else? Anybody else?
I have a question. This would pertain, I guess, to all buildings. Just curious, are any of the lessons or specials or anything being like recorded in case there is an issue where someone can't get on like 15 minutes later or whatever? Are they able to go back and watch the lesson, or you know what I mean, or lecture or whatever? Is that something that's being done at all? Anywhere?
I can speak at the elementary, we do not record. If a student's logging in late or something, they can just follow up with the teacher to gain the additional information. So even if they miss maybe the whole enrichment for the specials, if they reach out to the teacher can say, here's what we worked on. We can meet tomorrow to discuss if you need any additional help.
Okay.
Mr. Castler, Mr. Bartels?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes. Oh, no.
All right, I'm going to talk while Keith figures things out here. At the high school, we've encouraged our teachers to use that record function. We don't require it. I know that some of them do it, some of them don't, but if they don't, we follow along the same procedure that Mr. Koshin has explained at the lead, that they're to follow up with the students to make up what they've missed.
Okay.
Mr. Bartels?
Yeah, again, not that I'm aware of. The teachers know that function is there. I know some have played around with it, seeing how it went when we were virtual and in class. I think that might be something they might be willing to do more when confidence is there with making sure it looks right. And it, I'm not aware of any, so no.
I just want to remember when the board, we approved the letter of agreement regarding virtual with the teachers union, because this was really uncharted territory for all of us. We did not require recording in that letter of agreement. There was a lot of unknowns with the recording,
No, I know that we didn't require it. I was just wondering if anybody was doing it.
Correct, but I think what the reason why I said it is because as we're evolving and as we're moving and adjusting to what's been thrown at us, if you will, in terms of moving to 100% virtual and so forth, there are some that are seeing some benefits of it. There are some classes that it may not be beneficial. I think one of the conversations was about if a parent knows they're going to be out and they've talked to the teacher, can they get a recorded lesson? That's a conversation with the teacher to see what really needs to happen. Do they need that, or is there something else that can be done? I'll be honest, I'm a little leery on the recording. We have dealt with, obviously there's a lot of good stuff, and our teachers have, I said it over and over, I'll say that they stepped up to the plate and are managing 2 classrooms really. But we've also had to deal with some disruptions in the classrooms that from parents that we've had that have they're sitting there with their child and they've made the decision that they're going to start talking to the teacher during the middle of the class, and we've had to deal with those. we've had some disruptions of background noises or people, walking in the screens that may be distracting and so forth. And so there's a fine line here. In a perfect world, absolutely. But I think, as Mr. Bartel said, the comfort level of a teacher walking in and recording and not knowing really what's going to happen. We've said over and over, we got to be flexible. If something happens, we address it and we keep moving on. It's no reflection on you as a teacher. So I think there's some caution on that one.
Yeah, just my concern is that for like mostly actually, to be honest with you, elementary students, like if their parents are both working, we're 100% virtual, like they might have to go to grandma's house who doesn't know how to do that or isn't willing to help with that. And yet a parent can after work help them later. That's kind of what I guess why I was wondering if anything was being thought about in regards to that.
We haven't formalized
If I may, just have one more thing, as we talk about students not joining or what can happen, and I forgot to mention this because I was in a teacher's classroom today, just doing a quick walkthrough and see how the teacher was doing, and it was a specialist teacher, and she looked at all the participants, and then she saw that some students were not in class, so she was able to call those students through Microsoft Teams and just kind of remind them and invite them again, and then she had those students join. So I just thought it was a good another piece of technology that a student's not in class and that through Microsoft Teams, you can contact them, call them through Microsoft Teams, and then all of them joined after they got that just reminder, that message.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thank you, gentlemen, for your input. Now we're going to go back board to going back to Mr. Walmsley's talk about staying virtual and everything that he told us about that. So looking for some dialogue or conversation amongst board members if anybody has any questions or any comments about what Mr. Walmsley said a little while ago.
I do have some questions. Well, one question I'd like to have answered. Beyond teachers, are we low on staff, support staff as well?
That was my question too, Angela. Bus drivers, lunch aides. I mean,
right now, we were low when we were in person with special ed parapros because we had some that were in quarantine. And so they still may have provided services for kids, but we had to have another sub or parapro bring the kids in that angle. So right now, the special ed and Title I parapros have been assigned a schedule that they are providing services for kids virtually. So they're still operating. In person, we were a little tight because of the quarantine issue and staff being quarantined. Bus drivers, if we have a quarantine, we're pulling, if Deb Dobbs, our transportation director, remember we split her between New Haven and Richmond. If she's in Richmond, she's driving. If she's not available to drive, we're shutting down a run. We did process, I believe we have one substitute bus driver that was processed last week. I don't believe he's finished the training that's required to be able to drive students by himself. But we are training as soon as we get them in. Lunch, food service. We still have an open position at the the middle school that Mrs. Guinea has been interviewing and trying to fill. Actually, we had a gentleman come in today to fill an application. So we are still short in those areas. Currently, while we're in virtual, I've moved the bus drivers and the food service to the food service to deliver meals into the community because I still have an obligation that while we're virtual, I have to provide meals to families. Three, I'm going by memory, so forgive me if I number. The childcare, we moved to help out in the food service. Preschool and preschool aides are still, they're doing this virtually, but they're using some other systems, like they may be using Zoom because students don't have necessarily email accounts and so forth. But I'm just going through all the staff. IT, they're still here. I think that.
Suppose my concern is if we're low on staff, being teachers, and low on staff, support staff such as lunch aides that watch many elementary or K through 8 students, that would concern me if we're missing those. And I know we were short on those long before the pandemic or COVID even. So I'm concerned for our students' safety, even while they're face to face, if we don't have enough support staff to attend to the children beyond teachers, I guess is my concern.
I would say
Because of the quarantine restrictions, I know it's not that everybody's sick or
right.
people want to be where the situation is, but with the quarantine regulations, that's going to be an ongoing situation? Am I understanding that correctly? Or
you're absolutely right. You got to think of it twofold. Not only do we have the staff that they themselves have to be quarantined because they've been exposed, maybe a spouse is positive or they were at a function that someone was positive there and they now qualify, have to be quarantined. But we have a lot of staff whose kids go here. And if their classroom is quarantined, they have to now go home to be with their child. And now we're short staffed because we don't have, because they have to be with their child. So we got two issues on the quarantine. I'm going to call it direct exposure and kind of an indirect because of a child. So on a good day, we're staffed, but I would say majority of our days we're short in some fashion, and we're pulling people to cover. If Mrs. Borwick was not at the high school, I don't know how lunches would get clean between lunch periods. I mean, she's in there wiping down tables with the custodian and trying to get those lunchroom tables clean for the next group. All the principals are. I mean, so they're doing a lot of stuff that they don't normally do, but they have to do because it's got to get done.
You said 2 or 3 teachers. How many more teachers would have to be out for us not to be able to function?
If we hit 5, that's it. And that's assuming we're using all 5 of our substitutes. We are not getting substitutes to regularly fill position beyond 5.
Is that one building or district wide?
That's district wide. We have 5 current building subs that we have for COVID. 2 at the high school, 2 at the middle school, and 1 at the elementary school. One of those at the middle school is for a long-term absence right now. We know we're going to have 2 out next week. So there's 3 of them.
So really that's 4. If one of them's already assigned to
Correct.
a long time spot, that's 4.
Correct. Yes, you are correct. Yes. So
And that
once we hit
long-term
that,
spot-
I mean,
Mr. Walmsley, that long-term spot for that teacher, that's until when?
January.
And the 2 or 3 are, how much time do they have left on their 14 days?
One of them will be through a week after. So you're talking December 5th-ish. The other one, it's really a health issue. And when the person would be able to come back, I expected more than the 5th.
And that doesn't take into effect if somebody is sick and they call in sick. I mean, because that could happen. That's something to look at as well, right?
Correct.
Is there, I mean, I don't know. I'm just throwing my thoughts out there, I guess. So when the high school is set to return regarding the order from the health department or whatever on the 8th or the 9th, I don't remember which date it was.
They're not coming back. She's not letting anybody come back.
The
Yeah.
9th is when they're set to come back in person. Sorry, Kyle.
No.
Okay, so they're currently at this time set to come back on the 9th of December. So, and you're asking, your recommendation is for us to stay closed until January, until after the first of the year. Like I don't know, like why wouldn't the plan be for everybody to come back on the 9th? Because it sounds like, I mean, I know we still might have issues, but like will be over the Thanksgiving break, and that'll give them a few weeks before the Christmas break.
That is an option. And the reason why I did not recommend it to the board is based on what I'm hearing from the health department and what I'm seeing, I truly don't believe high school will be back on December 8th, 9th. And I'm
But
trying to give,
but aren't we also looking at the, what you said, which rings to me because Sandy, I hear what you're saying, but if we say we're going to come back after,
On the
after
9th.
the Thanksgiving on the 9th, and we run into the problems that we have been running into leading up to us closing how we did in the first place. If every day there's going to be a notice on Tuesday that there's no school on Wednesday because we can't staff. And then on Wednesday, there's no school on Thursday because of staff issues. To me, I would think if I was a parent, that's going to make me more crazy and disrupt how I'm trying to conduct my life and my job and all that kind of stuff, as opposed to saying, let's do it like this and come back on that day.
No, I
don't
see
know.
what you're saying. No, I get that. And that would definitely be more disruptive for sure, than to already have some kind of plan in play. But you're saying that you have a teacher that's going to be done around that time. I mean, that would give us then again 4 extra like substitute teachers available before we would have to get there, I guess.
because
No,
we have already canceled specials and
Okay.
had to have teachers cover classes.
Mhm.
We have at the secondary level teachers covering classes on their prep because we're short staffed. I believe there's 1 hour, and I want to say, I don't even want to guess. There's 1 hour at the high school. I only have 2 teachers to choose from. That's all
Okay.
that have a prep. I think it's 2 at the high school. And I think Mr. Bartels has 1 hour at the middle school where he has very little options if we are short.
Okay, so then, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
I just want to follow up with your last comment regarding why extend it. In a perfect world, if I had to close school tomorrow because I looked in our system and I realized we don't have enough to cover classes. In a perfect world, I would have to assume, number one, teachers have everything ready to go in the virtual world for their kids to have access. 2, all kids have taken their laptops home and didn't leave them in the lockers and have all the stuff they need for the next day. If we're going on off, you can probably expect at least the next day, you're not going to have all the kids able to get online or have the resources ready to go on. In a perfect world, if we didn't have enough staff, I could say, all right, tomorrow we're not in person. It's going to be 100% virtual because we're out of staff, but we're still learning's occurring. I can't say that it's going to happen that way because there's sitter arrangements for families that are going to have to be scrambling in the night before. You've got teachers who had planned to hand out or put something on overhead that they're now going to have to scan and make sure it's in Schoology so that they could teach virtually. And you got the student aspect on just, do they have the devices at home? We practiced with them prior to that and we sent them home. There were some kids that took it home, but we spent a day just distributing materials because people left them. We have kids who were quarantined at the high school coming up, not even listening to be quarantined, coming up to the high school to get their stuff. If that doesn't send an anxiety among a staff, I'm concerned with the staff, to be honest with you. They have done remarkable. I am extremely proud of every staff, not only teacher, support staff who have really thought out of the box, but they're hearing people not following what we should be doing, regardless of what you believe as a person. We need to be protecting our kids and staff. And right now we got into a point where we have more staff out than we can run it as a district. I believe in the next 2 weeks, this is Brian's belief, we're going to be back in the same boat, and I'm going to be calling a a day because I don't have staff. I could have put every administrator in classrooms last Monday and we still didn't have enough staff.
Okay.
That's
I mean,
the
definitely
challenge
concerning.
that we're having. And that's why
Sure.
my recommendation, I want kids in school. The administrative team, when we sat down, we want kids in school, but we also are recognizing it's becoming harder and harder to do it with the number of people who have been exposed and who are quarantined, who have been quarantined. That's the challenge that we have.
Yeah, my concern is really for, and I don't know what the answer is. It's just a really tough time, you know? My concern is for like the younger kids, like even even sixth graders, I guess some sixth graders, you know, fifth graders and lower, like they not being able to get on to do these classes because they can't without some kind of parent or some kind of guidance, and they don't have that until later on at night or on the weekend and things like that. I just I feel like maybe they'll be missing a lot.
I guess that's where I would, and I'm going to work with Mr. Koshin tomorrow to get a sense of how many students have not been online. I had a conversation with Mrs. Ranger the other day because as you know, her class was quarantined and she had to teach from home. And you know, I had a conversation how it went with her. And she was elated with how positive it was, the amount of parents and students that she had interacting, and she was doing it all day. She wasn't doing the reduced schedule with support, reduced all student schedule with interventions in the afternoon. She had a very different schedule, and you know, it worked. It goes back to the teacher, the parent, and the student, the relationship. If it's a positive, good relationship, we can make it work. We can make accommodation. Nobody's going to get penalized for not being able to log in. We've got to give extended time for a sign. We've been doing that because
No, I understand that they're not going to get penalized, but they're not going to also, they're not getting the lesson along with everybody else.
This is not ideal.
Yeah.
This is absolutely
Right.
not what any of us signed up for.
Right.
A parent
No,
perspective.
virtual learning is not real learning. Plain and simple.
It's not the learning, you're right. It's not the learning that we are traditionally used to providing our families. And I believe from our perspective, we got closest to having the real thing of a real teacher. Did we have bumps and hurdles and stuff? Absolutely. But when you look at what other students are receiving in other districts, this is I believe, farther ahead than many districts.
No, I totally
got into the virtual game.
And I totally agree with that. I understand, like I said, I understand that this isn't anybody's fault. This is where we are. I get that. But I'm just really concerned, not only for, like I said, the younger kids not getting, you know, the education that we would prefer that they get, but also it being such an extra burden on the families and the parents of those that are in, you know, 2-parent working homes. That's all. It's just, I just recognize that that's got to be really tough. I don't know. That's all.
Well, and we do have staff that have students in other districts, so we have to monitor them taking care because that's available through December 30th. The Families First Coronavirus CARES Act. I probably screwed up the name of it, but the federal legislation that allows them to have 2 weeks off for taking care of their own kids. And we've had staff that we've had to backfill their position because their child was in a district that went virtually, and they had to figure out
Yeah, but that's for 2 weeks. We're looking to go all the way to January
8th. Correct. And the other option at that is you can get up to 10 additional weeks, but it all expires December 30th. So it's
right.
The 10 additional weeks won't mean a whole lot to a lot of families, but that's available for anybody.
But yeah, I mean, if we don't have the staff, we don't have the staff. I mean, I'm not, you know, I don't know what we're supposed to do.
I guess the part of the reason why, and why I'm recommending this is we're struggling getting staff. And I'm trying to look at the lesser of two evils from the parent perspective. If as a parent, I know I've got to plan X, in this case, till January 8th, or every night, I may get a call saying there's no school tomorrow, or the next 2 days, make sure your child has the stuff if you need to pick it up tomorrow so we can go virtual in a day. There's lost days at that point. I'm just, again,
Right.
this is not an easy decision for anybody.
Right.
Ryan, are there no subs coming from EduStaff, or is it we're just using our own to limit exposure?
No, it's open forever. EduStaff is having the same problem. There are many subs that are choosing not to sub because they don't want to go into various districts.
Yeah, right.
And so they're limiting their pool. We have 5 of probably the top best subs I've ever seen. I mean, they know our kids, they know our district. They've developed a great relationship with teachers that they can almost seamlessly keep instruction going. But that is a struggle that EduStaff is, that subs are picking and choosing, limiting their schools they're going to be participating in, or just not subbing because they don't want to go into an environment that, you know, they don't know. You know, my plan is to work with Tammy to keep the substitutes through the end of the first semester, because we've been keeping them even when we're virtually, because they've had to cover classes for virtual teachers. And if we kept them through spring break, I'd be coming back with an amendment of about $42,000 that is a new cost that we didn't plan on, because we have to, you know, based on what they're making to get them through spring break. Yet alone, we have COVID aids that we have, you know, those we can suspend. Right now they're through Thanksgiving, depending on whether we're in person or virtual. They've been extremely important, just keeping us sanitized and checking kids in and doing some safety mechanisms. So I'd be recommending keeping them on while we work through this. Now those are a little more flexible, because, you know, we could when we're back in person bring them back, assuming they haven't gotten another job or they're willing to. But the substitute, we still need them when they're virtual. We have staff members who potentially may have tested positive who can't teach. And so we've got to have a backfill for them, or they're with a sick child and they can't teach, or they themselves are sick.
Kyle or Jessica, any comments? Questions?
All along I've said the kids belong in the classroom, but just the whole question mark about from day to day whether or not we're going to have school is just a bigger problem than that. And I just thank everybody that has put forth the first part of this year, our teachers, administrators. It's not your fault. I think if everybody's realistic, there's not a whole lot of great parenting going on out there. Just in the time that we've been virtual, I mean, I drive through town in the afternoon and kids are hanging out, and no one's going to mistake me for a Democrat, but people just aren't being responsible. They're hanging out, and it's unfortunate because it's affecting everybody.
I will say that while I prefer my child to be in school, we are a 2-parent working household, and it is very stressful having to find a different sitter for my son every single day, trying to teach a new sitter how to get him into his class, how to make sure he gets to a special, you know, setting alarms so he remembers to log into his special at certain times. As much as I want him in school, I would rather know what I need to plan for as a parent than have to go to day to day and wonder what I'm going to do.
Angela, we heard from you, didn't we?
Yes.
Yeah, right in the beginning, right? Sorry, it seemed like it was so long ago. I just want to correct something when I said that virtual is not real learning. That's it's real learning. Teachers are really teaching, students are really learning. What I was trying to say is face-to-face is the much better way to educate. I'm not a virtual proponent, but it is real learning, real teachings going on. So I apologize for that statement. But I believe kids need to be in school. I've said that all along as well. I do agree with Kyle in the sense that I believe Richmond Schools has done everything possible to keep our students and our staff safe, get our kids in here to learn in person, but it is outside things that are happening. And whether you're Democrat or Republican, we're human beings. We're not paying attention. We're not following good practices. We're having parties. We're getting in big groups. That's where it's coming in, and it's affecting our buildings. And we can't staff our people. We have people that have to go out. We don't have someone to come in and substitute in their classrooms, and teachers that are teaching on their prep hours and trying to help, and administrators that are going into different buildings to try to help run the buildings or going into classrooms. That's not conducive to good learning either. So I just think that saying every day we're not going to be able to have school because of not being able to staff, I don't think that would work. If I was a parent that was working, I agree with Jessica, I'd want to have my system figured out. But you know, maybe we'll start figuring out that we got to have best practices outside our building to keep our best practices happening in our building, and we can get our kids back to school, face-to-face learning in January. Sherry, did we hear from you? I'm sorry if I spoke.
No, I didn't. No. I agree. Face-to-face learning is the best and best case scenarios. So, you know, thinking about going all virtual is, you know, it's hard. Just because you know that they need that socialization. It's too confining and isolating to be virtual. You know, to some degree, you know, the governor didn't do K-8. So part of me wants to say, well, why can't we, you know, especially the younger ones are the ones that need the socialization more. They need more of the help and stuff. So, you know, part of me wants to say, let's do the younger kids face-to-face and see how that goes. So I don't know if, you know, we should do it all or do part of it. You know, maybe if half the student body's doing virtual, then I'm assuming those teachers are able to teach virtually even if they're quarantined. Am I right or no? Are they coming in the building to do their virtual?
Teachers?
Yes.
Teachers and the parapros are doing. I have been encouraging them, or I stated my sentence out, or my statement. I'm encouraging them, if they can teach virtually, to teach virtually from home. They are staff that are coming into the building because the resources are here. I have staff that have taken document cameras home from their classroom, took onto their laptop or computer at home so they can teach virtually. You know, Sherry, I'd just like to make it one point. You know, in the governor's statement, she has said that the spread is among high school kids. That's why she closed down high school. You know, and among the 21 superintendents, we disagree with her. And you look at the number of people who've been affected at the elementary school, we have 145 students or staff at the elementary school, 99 at the high school, and 458 at the middle school. Our elementary kids are the ones in our district that are being most affected by this in terms of having to quarantine classrooms and so forth. So, and that I'm not just the only superintendent, the 21's echoing the same thing. They're seeing different numbers than what was reported as the trend statewide. Now, maybe that is a trend statewide. I don't know that firsthand, but as far as people affected, it's our elementary.
I don't disagree that people of any age can
Correct.
get it and can spread it. So
No, no, yeah, you're right. But I just wanted to point out, and that's been a challenge for us at the elementary. It is hard trying to put a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old on a laptop learning is very different than doing a 16, 17, or 18-year-old student. From a parent perspective, their ability to do things on their own, getting up and doing it, it is very different.
But Brian, to Sherry's question though, when she asked if a teacher is out
Yes.
for quarantine, are they able to teach at home? But if we were in person, even though they could be teaching from home virtually, there's got to be a sub in that classroom for the kids that are there in person, correct?
Yes, basically the rule of thumb is if a teacher's not symptomatic or, just it feels fine, it's just they tested positive, but they have to be in quarantine, they're teaching from home. So for instance, we had a speech and language person out several weeks ago. They taught from home, but in school, I have to have a parapro go get the students, bring them into the room, sit with the students while they're there. And we pulled parapros from other buildings to cover it. So we were, in essence, robbing Peter to pay Paul kind of concept to cover our day. If a classroom teacher is quarantined, but they're feeling fine, they could still teach from home, but we still have to have someone in the room managing the in-person students. And that's where we're finding, once we've exhausted our building subs, we're having more and more teachers teach on their prep times, covering those classes. And from that angle, I am very concerned. Think about this from an elementary perspective. You're with those kids all day long. You have no break. And when you get your prep time, you're probably running to the restroom because you really can't leave kids alone to run to the restroom in the classroom, even though I'm sure it happens, but you have no break. And so now I'm telling them, oh, you're not getting your art because we're short teachers. We had to move the art teacher to cover class, and now you don't get that break at all. It's challenging. And again, I'm not here to paint a gloom and doom picture because I think we have the best plan. I think I count my blessings every day having a teachers union that wants to be in person. They're not fighting us.
Yep.
They want to be here. They see the importance. They understand. But we're now getting to a reality point where I don't know if we can keep doing it. And I'm going to be in a position that I'm going to have to call it eventually, and it's going to disrupt families and even more because it's last minute calls.
I mean, I do know that I'm hearing from more people everywhere I turn that are coming into are people they know are getting it and they have to quarantine and people, so more people that I know it's spreading quicker. And I think, I know people gathered in the summer just like they are now, but I think it's because the weather's getting colder and it's that transition and just that time of year where people get sick more often. So, maybe if we can get through this time and, do the virtual, just to get past this bad time and, let people build up the antibodies because so many are getting it. And, I mean, I don't think it's people doing anything less than what they did before. I think it's just the time of year where more people get sick. So.
Anybody else? Okay. Now what we're going to do, this is the part of our COVID where we are able to have public comment on this particular issue. What I'm asking is if there is anyone out in the audience that would like to address the board regarding the COVID stuff we've just been talking to, if you'll please identify yourself, your name, so that I can record and our secretary can record the names of people that are asking questions, as is our board policy. Just like our regular public comment. It's not a question and answer period. You would have 3 minutes to comment. So is there anyone out there in our audience in Mr. Walmsley? I believe I see Lisa Barrett. I believe that's the person earlier that wanted to speak. So maybe we can start.
And I believe everybody should have the ability to unmute themselves. So Mrs. Barrett, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I appreciate you doing this for me too. Okay, I have a couple questions. How do I know, like, as a parent, if my child needs the extra help? Because my child doesn't communicate with me well with school. She's in the middle school. So it's hard for me to know if she needs special help or not. That's one question. And if they don't need the extra help, do they have to attend these sessions in the afternoon? And if we do to do virtual until January, are the teachers still going to have the option of being in person or doing it at home? That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I have a comment question.
Is anybody going to answer?
We're not going to answer right now. Let's get through
Okay.
everybody's questions. I'm writing down what you're saying.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I have a comment, a concern. My name's Selby
Okay, and Shelby,
Major.
thank you.
My comment and concern is in regards to preschool. I have 5 kids doing virtual school right now, along with my husband working from home. I don't have a computer for her. We're making it work short term. I'm very concerned about long term. It's also very difficult to get a 3-year-old to sit in front of a computer and pay attention. I prepaid all of her tuition before COVID last year when I signed her up. So I just want to know if there's a plan in regards to that. I can't really pull her because I've already paid for it, but it's not working out very well right now.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a couple questions or comments. My name's
And your
Amanda.
name?
Amanda Hosang.
Thank you.
One, I was wondering, I have 2 kids in the elementary school, and I know we talked a lot about, the younger kids especially need socialization. So I was wondering if there could be like an optional period towards the end of the day where they could just have like friend time so that the kids could talk to each other, because there's a lot of time during the day. They can't just like social, just say, hey, how you doing? Or, you know what I mean? So I know they're going to miss that. Another one, when you guys are talking about recording, is there a way where you could just record the teacher's screen so that you don't see the other kids in the classroom? So that way you don't get distracted by people walking by and stuff. And then for my kids, I made shortcuts on the desktop. So like for their different like specials, I actually went to like the link. You know how when you go to a website, you can make a shortcut for that. So I went to that specific page and then made a shortcut of that specific URL. So like for STEAM or for, Miss Goddard's class or whatever, so that they didn't have to go through the whole Schoolology thing. And then also like my daughter is in technology. So they use like Story Online or Starfall. So I did shortcuts of those. And then you can like change the pictures if they can't read that good. So that way their screen is just a bunch of shortcuts of different pictures. So they know, Story Online is this one and, Miss Ranger's this one. And they can just click on it themselves. So it is a little bit easier for the parents. And I did make a video for a friend of how I did that. So I could also send that to someone.
Thank you. Anybody else out there?
I'll
Okay.
look through and see if I see any hands.
Oh, can I say something?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Okay, my name is Sarah Barzy, and I have 2 elementary kids, both ages 6 and 8. My 8-year-old is in a lot of resources, gets a lot of help. I'm very thankful for the teachers. They have gone out of their way to try to make the best of this. But what we are running into is no matter what, he's not learning at home at all. It is a struggle every single day just to even get him up and to sit, to even listen. I'm juggling 2 kids because I have to sit, my 6-year-old, I have to sit with and try to help show him what the teacher's doing. But at the same time, I have my 8-year-old that's having meltdowns and breaking stuff and not handling this. So I don't know if there's a way, I guess, to make it better or not, but I know I'm not the only parent that struggles with this.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, board members, I'm just gonna ask real quick with a couple of these things. Does anyone have a problem if we maybe answer some of this as part of this? I know we don't normally do it with our public comment, but since we're talking this whole COVID learning, does anyone have a problem if we see if we can answer?
No, I think
I fully support that. Yeah.
Okay. I guess with the first lady, Mr. Bartels or Mr. Berkmeyer is still here. She asked about how do you know if she has a middle school student, how do you know if the student needs extra help? How does the parent know if the child's not, how do they know that? And if they don't need the extra help, do they have to attend those afternoon sessions?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, the afternoon sessions is for everybody. So
Okay.
I would say, yes, you have to attend. It's highly encouraged to attend because it's not just for struggling learners. It's enrichment from something that you did earlier to get a deeper knowledge. It's a deeper discussion from the lesson that was earlier. Yes, there is built-in time for students that aren't getting it and that are struggling, our kids that struggle more, and we have schedules set up with our resource support center and our parapros, so on and so forth. So the afternoon session is highly encouraged. I mean, we're only getting a half hour, but about 20-25 minutes of instruction in the morning. That's half the amount of time. So to combat that, teachers are putting in a lot of time for enrichment and to further understand ideas in the afternoon that I would highly encourage all students to take part in.
Thank you.
And they're all assigned to groups. No one is exempt.
Okay. I think that was exactly what she was asking, so thank you. With the next lady, Mr. Walmsley, tell me what, it was the preschool question. Would that be maybe Mr. Koshin or Miss Manguni maybe could reach out to that parent, or do you have any kind of answer?
I believe Mrs. Major sent me an email previously regarding this. What I have to answer is we have been working, trying to get enough laptops for preschool. All of the laptops that were purchased, with the exception of the last group that the board purchased, I believe for 9th graders, we have taken every usable laptop we have and redistributed it to our K1-2. Preschool, we have looked at options. So for instance, if your board recalls, you purchased several years ago, I think it's been 5 years now, the tablets for K1 classroom sets. The problem is that we cannot put the filter system on those tablets. And we're required by law that any device that were passed out, we have to have the ability to filter it and protect our student from internet issues. We are trying to pull whatever laptops we have left for those families that do not have one, to get them a laptop. As far as the cost of preschool and some being prepaid, I am trying to figure out a way that we can prorate the preschools for the time that they didn't get for instruction that they paid for. I don't have that finalized yet. So for instance, a basic preschool schedule, and it's going to vary a little from each teacher, but they do a whole group instruction at the beginning. They're assigned or should be assigned some type of small group where the teacher has the ability to work one-on-one or maybe with just 2 students, and then they're supposed to do a closing activity at the end. That was a schedule that was given to me, and then it's framed. So it's about, and I say that very loosely because it depends on the age of the child, over a 3-hour period, about an hour and 15-ish minutes ish. That's not the same as the 3 hours that was paid for. So that's what I'm working on now. It's on the list to do. I just haven't got to it yet. So from the preschool, because recognizing for a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, they can't sit in front of a computer all day long. Even GSRP, the state program that we run, they limit how much time a student can be virtually. I'm sure Mrs. Zuby could probably attest with Head Start. They have a different schedule than a normal classroom.
GSRP.
I'm sorry, Head Start.
We follow.
Yes,
yeah, I'm Head Start and GSRP,
yes,
but we follow their rules. Yep.
So we are working on the preschool. I need to follow up with Mrs. Manguni to see where we are on the preschool and what students still don't have it. Mrs. Manguni has been talking to Mr. Berkmeyer, Mr. Lamont. We talked about it last week, trying to get devices. When we left our administrative meeting, we said, let's try the tablets. Mr. Berkmeyer went through the process to see, could we use the tablet? We can't, we don't have the ability to use our filter system. It only allows them to be filtered on site here. But once you go off site and you're using someone else's internet and so forth, there's no filter system. The plan is not working, difficulty. I think I got preschool.
So basically you have Miss Major's information that you
yeah,
can
I believe
finish everything.
Majors, I'm drawing a blank. I believe she sent me the information, and I believe Mrs. Napier, when we talked last week as an administrative team, this is one of the issues that she brought up in terms of how do we help families that do not have laptops outside of the K-12 program.
Okay.
Not sure if I missed it or not. I'm sorry, Margaret, but one of the first questions was how do they know if their child needs extra help? I'm not sure if I missed the answer to that or not, that part for the middle school.
Well, okay, I guess Mr. Bartels can come back on, but I thought he said that time in the afternoon, everyone's required to attend that. So you're either going to get the extra help, you're going to get some kind of enrichment in addition to what you're learning. But Mr. Bartels, if you want to come back on, if I didn't say that correctly.
Yeah, I know that. I heard that part, but I guess I'm wondering, like, how do they know if their kid actually needs extra help, though? Like, besides that, I'm not sure if she meant besides that or during that.
Yeah, I mean, there's different types of extra help. I mean, there's kids that get extra help for IEPs. There's kids that get extra help for 504s. There are kids that get extra help every hour, every day, because we expect our teachers to meet the students where they're at and differentiate. And not all classes are homogeneous. I mean, we have varying abilities in every single classroom. So extra help and support happens daily. We also have right now our Title I aides are sitting in the classrooms working with teachers and students. We haven't executed our virtual Title I plan yet. We're going to finalize that and execute that plan in the coming weeks.
But
kids for that are kids for Title I are targeted based on teacher recommendation and test scores.
I think I know what Sandy's trying to ask. So let's say her daughter or son is not saying, hey, mom, I need help. I think I need to sign on today from 2 to 3 with my teacher. If the child is not saying that or asking for the help, will an email or some kind of communication be sent to that parent saying, we really feel like your child will need some extra time? Like, will she get some kind of notification from the teacher if the child is not being honest and telling them, I need extra help?
All students are signed up in groups, and they are to log in 2 to 3 times a week in the afternoons to work with the teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So if students are behind and they're really struggling, then that's the communication that happened. I'm sure that happened at parent-teacher conferences.
Okay.
That's the type of communication. If students aren't, if there's more than just, I need a little help on this assignment because I don't understand it. Otherwise, our teachers would be on the phone 24/7. I mean, so it's the targeted support with a purpose in the afternoons here for those 3 hours, because we don't have them in school and in class. But that's like here's for example, 4th grade. You walk into any 4th grade classroom while they're teaching mathematics, and it's harder now with the COVID and everything, but it wouldn't be uncommon to see 4 or 5 teachers or students huddled around one of our 4th grade teachers teaching math in a math center with the struggling learners. And then you'll have 4 or 5 working together in a different area, and they rotate through, but that teacher is going to work with those struggling learners probably 5 to 10 minutes more than the other groups. So that type of expectation and that type of teaching we are still doing and moving forward virtually. I don't know how you communicate that other than it's an expectation that kids are there every day.
Okay, and then teachers, or I'm sorry, not teachers, but parents can still go into Power School and look at their kids' work and what they're doing, what they're completing, what they're not completing, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's updated every Tuesday by 8 a.m.
Thank you.
But I think the bottom line, though, Mr. Bartels, you're saying that the enrichment stuff that's happening in the middle school, everybody needs to attend it. It's a required attendance.
It's
Right?
important. It's their education.
Okay.
And that's where, but the letter that I sent out was very broad because we're dealing with a kindergarten classroom through a 12th grade AP government classroom, and it's going to look different depending on the level. If you think of it this way, just the simplest terms, the morning whole group, everybody's getting that instruction. In the afternoon is our opportunity to give every student the ability to have individualized instruction. Whether I'm at the high school level and the teachers identify these 5 kids, I need you to come. It does not preclude other kids from coming too. If you need help, that's what it's there for during that hour. Or as Mr. Bartels said, this group is going to come Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and this group, or Monday, Wednesday, this group's Tuesday, Thursday, and it's office hours on Friday. Or Mrs. Dorsey at the elementary school say, okay, from 1 to 1:30, I'm going to have my red group in the reading group because I'm going to work with them in guided reading for this 30 minutes and give them the individualized instruction. And then from 1:30 to 2 is this group because I need to work with them to give them their individual instruction. It varies by level, but the intent is there is still 6.5 hours of instruction. It's just looking a little differently than it would if it was in person. That's what we're trying to do. And if there's a doubt, if you really think you don't know if your child needs extra help or not, just as a curiosity, shoot the teacher an email. They'll answer you like, oh no, your child's right on track. Keep it up. Do whatever you're doing, or let's get them to come a little extra on these days. The teachers will answer. They'll let them know. They know the child the best next to the parent. So that's why we stress that important, that relationship. When a parent calls me, the first thing I said is, have you talked to the teacher? Because I'll help you, but you got to start with the teacher. So,
Okay. Next parent talked about she has 2 kids at Lee, and at the end the optional friend time where kids could interact. In the building where I work, we did that today with our kids, and it was fun to hear them ask how the other one's doing and that kind of stuff. So I would think it's not a bad idea. I don't know, but we could toss that to Mr. Koshin. And she created the shortcuts on the desktop, made videos and stuff. I would think for parents out there that would love to get some guidance on that, maybe that's something she could send Mr. Koshin to you, and that could be available if people want to look at that video. It might not be a bad idea. But what are your thoughts on the optional friend time for the kids?
Yeah, I've actually talked to some teachers and they are incorporating that already, because they've noticed that as one of the needs, is that when kids see each other, they want to talk to each other. So we have some teachers who are incorporating that already. That's something I can share with the staff tomorrow. And with the specials and finding a easier, a smoother way, I've already been in contact with all the specialist teachers. So there's dialogue going on right now about how to make that look and how to make it work a little bit better. So it's easier for students, parents, and families to help navigate switching from classroom to special. So that's in process right now.
There's a saying out there, we have to meet the child's needs first before we're going to be able to educate them. And that is a downside of virtual classroom, because they don't get that socialization. They don't get that. So this is a really creative way of doing it. I know teachers are going to pick this up and they'll customize it and evolve it to make it their own, but it's a great idea. So definitely thank you.
Yeah, it is. And then the last parent, Mr. Koshin's building as well, the struggles with the two kids and the 8-year-old in particular. Maybe that parent could reach out directly to you, Mr. Koshin, to see what kind of things we could do to maybe help that specific family concern.
Or we could reach out directly to them.
Yeah.
If I got I wrote down Sarah Barzy.
Yep. Yep, I know the family.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right,
Yep.
perfect. Okay.
Yep. I'll make a note to reach out to him tomorrow.
Fabulous.
We can get probably Mrs. Lashbrook involved, just because it may involve other students in other buildings too. So
Okay.
just in whatever solution we can come up with. So we'll definitely.
Okay. Excellent.
I think I missed a hand, Margaret.
Oh, did we?
O'Neill, I think it's a guest, O'Neill.
Okay.
Hi, yes, this is Janice O'Neill. I just want to say thank you all for doing a great job in making these tough decisions. I do have a question in reference to if we do go all virtual. I have a hotspot and I believe it's supposed to expire here in a week. What do we have to do to get these reset? How long does it take, so forth, so we can pick it back up? Will we be getting the same hotspot back or another one?
Mind if I answer that right away?
Yep, go ahead.
The hotspots, they shouldn't expire if they're a district hotspot. So you'll just keep the hotspot that we have on file that's been issued to you. The hotspot subscription that we purchased was for 12 months. So actually the first group of hotspots we have, I think it's either May to May or it was June to June. So you should be fine. So if we go virtual, you'll just keep the hotspot that you've been issued. For those, on a side note, those that have given us their name, I believe we have about 15 because we had to order additional hotspots. Like I said, if they didn't come in today, they're supposed to be in tomorrow. So we'll be in contact with you to come pick up your hotspots.
Thank you. If you could double check on that, Mr. Walmsley, I appreciate it, because I believe mine did say something December. I had to return it by December, like 10th or something. I don't know the exact date.
On the form.
Correct.
Okay. So as long as you're virtual, you're good. But I will double check it and I'll make sure as long as you're virtual, you're good. We know.
Okay, I didn't know if we have to reset something or so.
But I will double check and I'll reach out to you tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I believe that's
Do
all
we
the
think-
hands. I didn't see any more hands.
Okay, all right, excellent. All right, now we're going to move on to our regular public comment portion of our board meeting. That is, if anyone has something they would like to address the board other than the COVID stuff we've been talking about, you have the ability to do so. You have 3 minutes to talk. It is not a question and answer period. However, if you have a question that you would like answered, usually when we are in a regular face-to-face meeting, we have you write your name and telephone number. But if you have a question, you can send your phone number to me at mtelto@richmond.k12.mi.us. Is there anyone who would like to address the board on an issue other than our COVID plan? Okay. Moving on, Superintendent Legislative Update, Mr. Walmsley.
Okay, I'll start with the legislative update. There is not much happening. They're still on a break. There is, the message was sent by the leadership in the House and the Senate that there is not really a lot of motivation or intent to take up any educational legislation during what we often refer to as lame duck, which is a time after the election before the new senators and representatives take office. There is one that we are watching. There is some conversations about possibly lowering the requirements to be a substitute staff member in districts. The last I had heard, and I haven't seen anything officially in writing, but the last I had heard was basically if you were 18 and older that you could substitute in a building. While we are in need of substitutes, I don't want to say desperate, but we are definitely looking for substitutes. For anybody who's volunteered in a classroom, I truly don't believe anybody can do it. You do need to have a skill set to be able to manage a group of kids, and whether they're 5-year-olds or 18-year-olds. I would be a little concerned. I would hope if they're going to pass that type of legislation, there's still district discretion on if the districts want to set a bar that's higher, just because of though everybody has well intentions and so forth, not everybody's meant to be a classroom substitute or a paraprofessional. So as far as district, today we had a half day of school. Tomorrow is another half day of school, and then we start our Thanksgiving break. I want to wish the entire staff, our students, our families a happy Thanksgiving. Please stay safe. We look forward to seeing you after the break, whether we're in person or virtual. And just stay safe, please. That's all I have.
Thank you. Next, items of interest from members of the board. Does anyone have anything?
Nothing other than thank you for your continued flexibility to everyone in our organization. Obviously, there's not a playbook, and I think we've done just a hell of a job. So thank you to everybody.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on to our action items. First one, approval of amendment to or confirmation of extended COVID-19 learning plan. We had our lengthy discussion at the beginning of the meeting. There is a sample resolution, board members, and there are two options. My recommendation is if someone is going to make a motion for option number one, to put in there the date of returning, of being out virtually through the January 8th date, so it's included in your motion, so it's clear.
I motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent as presented in the attached documentation and approve the amendment to the extended COVID-19 learning plan as discussed with those amendments, being that we would be all virtual till January 8th of 2020. Where was I? It's in the discussion, considered and directed by the Board of Education at the November 23rd board meeting. This action amends how the instruction is to be delivered and has provided an opportunity for parents and or guardians to provide public comment on the plan while reporting the weekly two-way interaction rates to date.
Support.
Jessica, was that you?
Yes.
Okay. It has been moved and supported. Is there any discussion other than all the discussion we've already had? I'm going to do a roll call vote. Sandy,
Aye.
Jessica,
Aye.
Jerry,
I had a question. Was it January 8th or 9th?
through January
January
8th. We would return January 11th.
Aye.
Angela,
Aye.
Kyle,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Motion carries. Next, second reading and approval of board policies. We, 2 meetings, we did our first readings of policies 3115, 4101, 4102, 4104, 4104F, 5205, and 5301. Looking for a motion for the second reading and approval.
I motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the board policies as presented during our first reading on October 26th and November 9th, and as a second reading on November 23rd, outlined in the attached documentation.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion?
You just want to reference about the last policy 5301. That was the one that was done on October 26th. All the other ones were on November 9th, just as a
Right.
clarification.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, approval of resolution for summer tax collection.
Every year, the board needs to, by January 1st, I believe it is, they have to determine when you want your summer taxes collected. We have always collected them, or when you want your taxes collected. We have always collected all of our taxes in the summer. So this resolution authorizes Mrs. Shad and myself to be in contact with the townships and city to notify them that July 1st tax collection is what we're requesting, a summer tax collection.
Okay, there's a sample resolution.
I motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and impose a summer property tax levy to collect all school property taxes in each city or township in which the district is located, as outlined in the attached resolution.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, approval of amendment to the master agreement between Richmond Community Schools Board of Education and Educational Paraprofessionals, Teamster State, County, and Municipal Workers Local 214. There is a sample resolution.
I motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to approve and amend to the existing contract between Richmond Community Schools and Educational Paraprofessionals, Teamster State, County, and Municipal Workers Local 214, expiring June 30th of 2024, as outlined in the attached documentation.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion?
I would just like to thank the Teamsters, Mr. Pedri and Mrs. Pietzel. It was a pleasure negotiating with them.
Anybody else? Okay, excuse me. It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, approval of letter of agreement.
Further direction that we received, Mr. Huber and myself had met with the Richmond Education Association and MEA Local 1 to come up with a resolution to the grievance 20-2101. In your board packet, you have the backup. It clarifies some pieces that were very important to be clarified. And as well as resolves the grievance so that it does not move any farther beyond this point.
A motion to accept the letter of agreement between the Richmond Education Association and Richmond Community Schools as outlined in the attached documentation. Furthermore, the Board of Education directs the superintendent to sign the letter of agreement on its behalf.
Support.
Thank you. It has been moved and supported. Is there any discussion?
I have a question.
Sure.
Do we have an estimate of what the attorney fees were for the cost of all that?
I do not have that because that bill will come in December. Don't
make any guesses. The answer is
I
no.
can't even ball. I currently don't have a number for it. That would come in the December bill.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, it has been moved and supported. All those in favor, aye.
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 Aye. 1, 2. All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, motion carries. That is it. That is our meeting. We are adjourned. We hope that everyone has a good and safe Thanksgiving. Stay safe, everybody. And we are adjourned at 9:43 p.m. Good night.